Hello, my name is Ryan Shatkin, and this is my presentation for my upcoming research paper on the topic of vamps and femme fatales of the silent film and noir genre. Now, uh, before we move on to what my thesis is and what my research question was, there are a few things I think are important to discuss beforehand. Namely, what is a vamp? Vamps were a character type made famous initially by Theda Bara in the film A Fool There Was from 1915. Vamps were effectively uh, female villains that would seduce male leads, uh, typically through a mixture of their feminine wiles as well as some sort of magic power. In some cases, this was supernatural. In other cases, it was more mystic. Um, Vamps weren't just vampires, they were sort of the whole general genre of monsters in a way, um, though they are perhaps most associated with typical vampire traits, specifically the notion of a parasitic relationship with their host. Uh, the ideas of vampires being bloodsuckers has existed since the first vampire. So that general idea of them being parasites was something understood during the silent film era. Um, Following vamps, what are femme fatales? Femme fatales were a character archetype found in the noir genre that first began in the 1930s, but became profitable and popular in the 40s and 50s in particular. Femme fatales were effectively an evolution on the vamps. They were far more realistic, far more human, in some ways far more nuanced, though they were still typically relegated to purely villainous roles. They were some of the most agency-filled females in film at this time period, but their agency was mostly motivated by greed. Uh, Femme fatales are perhaps most notable for their ways that they wanted to earn money, which is through a mixture of seduction and skullduggery. Uh, for example, in the film Double Indemnity, a woman seduces a man to convince him to help her kill her husband, so that way they can split the insurance money. And the film The Maltese Falcon features a stolen piece of art and a bunch of dead bodies that follow in its wake. The end of the movie kind of reveals the fact that it was all an elaborate plot by Mary Astor's character. Uh, it's complicated, and these characters often are. Um, this kind of brings me to my initial research question and the thesis that I derived from it. The original research question was, were the vamps and femme fatales conscious critiques and criticisms of women at the time and their general upward mobility in the realms of politics and sort of civil rights and liberties, or whether they were more subconscious, accidental coincidences? Um, the conclusion I've come to is pretty simply yes, they were extremely conscious critiques. People were afraid of what was happening in the world. I've read a lot of papers and suggestions and articles about the idea of emasculation relating to this. Uh, One of the more reasonable, I suppose, theories was that a lot of the directors and writers that would work on these movies were people coming out of Germany following the end of World War One, and that the loss of the war led to emasculation in a lot of different contexts, and this led to general anxiety and fear towards women in general for many of these men. Uh, it oftentimes these arguments kind of falter in my eyes and don't really have a lot of solid evidence and are more strictly interpretive than anything else, and kind of rely on the basic idea of when men feel like women, they treat women as evil. And it's possible, but it's a little too psychoanalytical for me. What I have found to be a solid argument and something that I feel holds true is the idea that it's not necessarily emasculation by itself, it's more fears and anxieties over the general upward financial growth that women were achieving in these sort of different time periods, uh, which is why my thesis statement will be something along the lines of a deep conviction in belief that these films are conscious critiques in anxieties from men in particular over the upward mobility and economic independence that women are able to uh, claim during these time periods, and general fears over the places where they're replacing men in the workforce. Now, you might find yourself wondering why this is even a research topic and why this might matter at all. Much has been said in the past about the way that films can reflect society's anxieties and fears. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is often referred to as a statement over the fear of communism and its ability to spread. People have made arguments over George Romero's Night of the Living Dead being about racial politics and general fears therein. Similarly, I think it's important to ask if these are conscious critiques, if these are anxieties and fears. Art has always been a great way to explore social critiques and commentaries on the state of the world. And with film being something of a new piece of art being developed at this time, I think it's incredibly interesting to see the beginnings of social commentary within this art form. On top of that, the noir genre is still alive and well in many different forms. It is often used as inspiration for a lot of different works and character types. The femme fatale isn't dead and gone away. It's merely evolved into other things. And as that character type becomes associated with new societal anxieties and fears and understandings about the roles of women, I think it's interesting to look at their origin point and to see how much growth there really has been in the realm of politics and gender equality, even though it's still far from perfect. Thank you for your time, and hopefully I've convinced you to at least be interested in my research paper, if not wanting to read it.